Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to another episode of Business Innovators Radio. I'm your host, Donna Gunter. Today we have with us Jan Moore, Intuitive Life and Business Success Coach. Jan helps enlightened people like change makers, entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers create the $1 million mindset, message, and marketing that builds a thriving business that they love. She's a certified professional life and executive coach and mentor and creator of the Empower Your Life, Achieve Your Dreams program, and author of Dream Achiever Success Kit and Empowered Manifestation. She specializes in personal empowerment and conscious marketing, providing practical and business marketing strategies combined with intuitive guidance and sprinkled with spiritual metaphysical principles. Welcome to the show, Jan.
Thank you very much, Donna, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Jan, I always like to ask people about their background when we get started. So what led you into coaching? Was it something that you always knew that you wanted to do?
Not at all, actually, quite the opposite. In fact, being quite a mature lady, I was in business or in professional life before really coaching was even established as a profession. So I started really in IT. And way back when computers filled a whole room.
Right.
I moved into project management. And so I had about 20 plus years involvement with IT. But primarily my focus was on the business application of IT. I was really interested in that rather than the technical side of it. And as a manager, I was very much focused on the development of my team in order to create successful outcomes. And I got to the point of really feeling like a fish out of water in corporate life because it became very political in the organisation I was working in at the time. I was running a multi-million-pound project in the largest catalogue retailer in the UK, and there were a lot of issues going on with implementation partnerships. And I decided I really didn't feel comfortable in that environment, and it was at a time when I was going through a period of transformation myself, really exploring spirituality and metaphysics and so on. So it was really a transitional time for me, and I decided to set up my own business because I'd always had this kind of real deeply held urge, if you like, for want of a better word, to actually be in business for myself. So I created an internet consulting business and actually was certified as an internet consultant, focusing on web development and on internet marketing. And it was this was in 2008 when social media was starting to develop, and I actually wrote a book back then on social media marketing. The major change came for me in 2010, and I went through a process of really having had many major challenges in my life with my personal relationships with my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time, and children, and everything seemed to be coming at me. And I started to really look at what I was here to do. I was learning about law of attraction, other kind of universal laws, and the importance of following your purpose. So I went through an exercise to really review everything I'd done in my life and what my skills were, what I really enjoyed doing. And it was through that process, which I now use with my clients, that I realized there was a theme running through everything that I was doing, and that was very much about the mentoring role that I'd had all the way through with my team members, and how it has really, in some cases, turned their career around because of being a very supportive leader rather than a kind of dominant authoritative leader, which, some of my team members had experienced in other environments. So that was what led me into coaching and mentoring. And because of my studies in the metaphysics, and also I was very interested in psychology, and particularly since as a team leader I've been introduced to psychometric testing, the Myers-Briggs personality test. And it was a real aha moment for me in terms of understanding that people operate differently. Naively, I thought, well, everybody's like me, aren't they? So why don't they work like me? And when I actually went through this course, when I was working in a IT consultancy in the UK, it was like, that's why I'm struggling to really work with these team members. So, this is where I've developed my coaching and mentoring program to really allow people to dig deeply into their personalities, into, what are the core issues that they're facing that are really preventing them from being successful. And all of these things have really come together in terms of all the experiences I've had to date in both my personal life and in my business life.
Well, you talked about being a mentoring kind of team leader and about how you had the aha experience with the Myers-Briggs. Were those personal attributes or traits or qualities that contributed the most to your success, or was there something else, and how did you develop those?
I think by learning more and more about myself, I became very conscious of where my strengths lie. And, our business life really can't be divorced from our personal life. And, some of the experiences that I've had in my personal life have been very life-changing, very influential, both the negatives, the really deeply challenging times, and, the positive recognition of the meaning of a lot of these experiences. And, I'm a very analytical person by nature. And of course, with my IT background, that has developed my skills in analysis. And what I've done is I've translated that into really taking apart some of these universal laws that we're not taught about, and really understanding not only how we create outcomes on a practical level, but also how we can influence outcomes on the conscious level as well. So, this is a combination really of the spiritual laws, but also understanding some, I'm not saying, a huge amount, of the quantum physics. And when you see the two principles come together and the validation through science of some of the spiritual principles, and you actually apply that in everyday life, it really is very enlightening to see how much power we actually have that we're not taught that we have. So it's really been applying my natural abilities and my passion for real lifelong learning about principles of the universe and about people and psychology and why people behave in the way that they do, that's really helped me. But also what I believe very strongly is that people need to get in touch with their purpose, because that's the only way you are going to really stick with your vision, your intention. Because, I spent quite a lot of time leading up to moving into coaching and mentoring where, I would try all sorts of things because I went through a period of quite serious financial problems. So it was like, well, what can I do to make money? What if I try this? And I was very into the internet marketing realm at that time. But of course, because it was being done for a very superficial reason, there was no deep commitment to that. So if things were difficult, I just move on to something else. And I'm sure, there are plenty of other people out there who can resonate with that. But once I understood my purpose, this is something that is so deeply seated in me now that it doesn't matter what comes along. I know that this is what I'm intended to do. And yes, there may be discouragement, but I remind myself, well, would I really want to do anything else? And the answer is a resounding no, because in my heart, I know that I'm doing the right thing. And, one of the things that I teach people in my program is that our life purpose is also the means by which we fulfill our soul purpose. We're given exactly the right environment in which to address all these core issues that we've got, because these are challenged in the environment that we choose to work in. So the two are very much interrelated. And so when we do get challenges in our professional life, it's the opportunity to really dig into, well, okay, what is at the root of this and how do I resolve that so that I don't come across this same situation again? So I hope that's answered your question in a very long-winded way.
Well, it's just amazing, how you've interspersed these kind of life and business lessons, and you've talked about or hinted about overcoming some adversities around some financial issues and some personal upheavals. What kept you going despite these obstacles? Why didn't you give up when you were overtaken by these?
I think because, as I said, I had a deeply held conviction that this was the direction I was meant to go in. So instead of focusing on the actual problem, what I would focus on really were two things. One was, what is it I need to change in me to overcome this and to also, resolve that underlying issue so it doesn't happen again? And really focusing completely on the outcome rather than on the problem. What's the outcome that I really want to achieve from this? So that created it kind of opened the path for the solution to present itself. What I didn't include in my bio that you introduced is I had this, my husband Bill had created this A Smiling World business with a view to actually creating conscious business events. He's very much focused on building businesses that really revolve around the people as the key assets to make a success. Because once you have happy employees who really are invested in the business, the results that you get are far better than employees that feel they're just being exploited. And at the time, I was really awakening to consciousness, and really the turning point for me was reading Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, and learning about the power of ego, etc., etc. And I said, well, you can't have conscious business without conscious people, and I was very interested in that aspect of developing people, empowering people, getting to them to understand the power of their consciousness. So his idea for business events, I kind of hijacked and turned into a major festival. And in 2011, this is when the idea was originated in the UK, and it was a product of a meditation. And so in 2010, we moved back. Well, not for me, but my husband Bill was brought up in Texas, so he's an American. We actually moved back to the US and created the Festival of Enlightenment, which we held in Estes Park in 2011, and that was a 7-day, 7-night festival. And we approached it as almost like a research project in manifestation. And it was, the event itself was a resounding success in terms of the impact it had on the people who attended. It was not quite a success for us in terms of finances and left us in a deep hole, which was one of our challenges. But we were facing really our demons all the way through that process. And, you know, because we'd actually told the world we're doing this, you know, it was like an accountability factor,
right,
saying we have to do this. You know, it's like failure is not an option. This is not. And I felt very deeply, for me particularly, as I'd received this vision, that it was a mission that I had to fulfill. So it really brought to the surface, for me specifically, a lot of fears I had and had carried for years around money. My sole purpose is really around abundance and power. So naturally, I'm now mentoring people on abundance and empowerment. But, you know, the fact that I did the festival was more about an opportunity for me to recognize and deal with these issues that were coming up. But the key lesson from that is always to keep the vision much bigger than the obstacles. So, yeah, of course, we had huge challenges along the way in the 12 months of developing the festival. But miraculously, you know, incredible things happened that enabled us to overcome those and actually achieve the outcome that we wanted. And, you know, all the attendees said it was absolutely life-changing. We created this wonderful energy. And it was a very different event in that we had speakers and attendees from all over the world, and everybody stayed in this one venue in Estes Park. So it wasn't a case of we've got gurus over here and we've got, you know, the consumers of it over there. It was a real mingling and a development of a community. And we would have these lovely events in the evening after the speakers had finished workshops and so on. And it's built a connection between people that continues today. We have a Facebook group that the Festival of Enlightenment Friends, which is still going to this day, which is now 5 years later, which is quite unheard of in terms of a single event. So, you know, these are the kind of things that have really helped me to develop a program that will help other people also, you know, see the challenges, you know, not run away from them, accept them as something that they can benefit from in terms of learning about themselves, learning about the universe, how it brings these things to us to help us to grow, and really be faithful to your vision, to your life. Not be discouraged by people who say, well, you really ought to get a sensible job, or, you know, that's never going to work. Because, you know, when you've done the impossible, when many people said creating the festival was impossible, you actually realize that the only limitation is your belief system. So
right,
by addressing that and those limiting beliefs and really building on the recognition and the development of your natural talents, those two in combination can create some outstanding results.
Well, Jane, you mentioned vision as you were talking about these obstacles. What's your vision for your business over the next 5 years? It's really to develop a means of supporting businesses that are really invested in creating positive change in the world. My focus, you know, I've come from a very practical background, a very conventional background of corporate and business. So I have a lot of skills that I can help people perhaps in the more holistic arena to implement. And, you know, one of the challenges that a lot of people face in this
in that market is that they're really passionate about what they have to offer to the world, but they're often lacking in the business skills and in the marketing skills and actually getting raising their visibility in the world so that people can actually benefit from what they're offering. And this was the case very much at the festival. We thought originally we were going to have some, big names from The Secret and everything else, and that actually turned into a whole different event with lesser known speakers, but who have some really powerful teachings to present to people. And a lot of them were not getting the recognition that they deserved. And this is what prompted this focus for me on conscious business. And so what I intend to develop is a business that supports those people in terms of their message and marketing and dealing with the mindset as well, because, that is fundamental to creating success, and also giving them a platform to raise their profile. So I also just relaunched our radio show on Blog Talk Radio, which is called The Conscious Living Show, which is everything to do with conscious living in terms of conscious evolution, conscious business, conscious lifestyle in terms of really being aware of the impact of how you spend your money and how you live. And another plan is to create a community conscious living club where holistic businesses can actually showcase what they do. We can build a community of businesses that have really good value to offer, and also people who are looking for those products and services. And I believe that, we do have a purpose and that we're supported in that purpose. And interestingly, my focus has been on developing my mentoring program. And then, interestingly, I started to be approached by people in the business who were asking me to help with marketing and websites and everything else. So this is where my focus has really expanded now into not only the mindset work, which I find fascinating and extremely rewarding because of the aha moments it brings to people, but also helping people to really define what makes them different. Define their message and developing really powerful websites for them to actually express that into the world. And my belief, and it's obviously supported by quantum physics, is that everything has energy. And people have remarked about the websites that I've built over the years that they actually project an energy to people that attracts the right people to them. So this is how I intend to continue to help people, particularly who are awakened, who are conscious, who are wanting to develop their business in a positive way and also develop themselves as well.
Well, those are some pretty lofty goals for the next 5 years. As you look back on your business, are there one or two big lessons that you learned from starting any of these ventures?
I think the key thing that I think is very important is that, we're living in a world of instant gratification, and we're also living in a world of media that seems to present the impression that overnight success is easy, particularly in the internet marketing world now. There's so much information on the internet about, you just buy my program and you'll have instant success and you'll make millions. People get very discouraged then if they don't see immediate results. Yet, if you actually look at the people who are really successful, what you learn is that they've been through the mill to get there. They have really faced a lot of challenges, and the key thing that has kept them going is the persistence and the absolute commitment to what they do. So the key thing that I've learned is to be patient, to recognize that success actually comes in small steps. And I quote the principle that the power of the universe is at the quantum level. You know, it's down at the particle level. It's not at the planetary level at all. It's the particles that make up the energy that creates everything in the universe. And yet we try to do things in huge leaps and often, you know, crash and burn because the particles haven't been created in the right sequence, in the right time scale to really build solid foundations. So, you know, my tendency to try and jump steps has been a big learning, whereas no, I'm going to just persist and do things one step at a time and really look for the positive results that I'm getting rather than focusing on the, well, that didn't happen as quickly as I wanted it to, or well, that didn't work, you know. It's really about building it one small step at a time. And there is a book, I don't remember the title exactly, but it's based on the Kaizen principle. That's Kaizen. And this is something that was developed in Japan. And apparently, I think, was implemented by one of the big motor manufacturers like Toyota. And that is really saying, what is the smallest step that you can take towards your goal? Literally down to, if I spend a minute on this, that is going to contribute to the outcome that I want. Because, you know, much of the problem that a lot of business people and people in whatever sector struggle with is procrastination. We tend to put things off because we think, well, you know, that job's going to take me 2 hours. I don't have 2 hours right now, so I won't do anything towards it. And then it gets put on the, you know, off to the next day and the next day. But the Kaizen principle is take the smallest step, a minute, 5 minutes. You know, if you want to do some exercise, spend 5 minutes. And once you've started, it's much easier to continue beyond that point. It's the starting of it that's often the challenge. And the same if you're a writer. I'll just write a paragraph rather than a chapter. And so you write the paragraph and then the next paragraph flows. And so it becomes, it gathers its own momentum rather than being put off by this big task that you've set yourself, that you either procrastinate because of fear that it's going to be too difficult for you, or just because, well, I haven't got time for that at the moment. So that's really an underlying principle of not only taking those small steps, but also recognizing the value that they have and the progress that you make in even completing the smallest thing. And, you know, this is one of the things that I teach people, is that success is not about external things. It's about recognizing internally what that means to you. And that recognition of every small step not only takes you further, it actually builds your own confidence in your own ability to succeed as well.
Yeah, that was a good point that you made about our need for immediate gratification, because you hear so often about someone who's quote-unquote an overnight success, and what you don't see is the 15 years of blood, sweat, and tears that they put into that perception of being an overnight success. And so persevering and not procrastinating, sticking to your goals, that's a great lesson to remind people about, you know, that and taking it in small steps, not to get overwhelmed as well, is also, I think, really, really important. Jan, as you look at the coaching industry, the mentoring industry overall, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about working with a coach or a mentor?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is perhaps that you don't need a coach. Because, you know, there are a lot of people out there, I think, that don't even really know about the coaching industry, and particularly people who are starting to create success for themselves. They perhaps don't realize that the most successful people have coaches. I mean, it's widely recognized that in sports, people have coaches, performance coaches and so on. But I think it's less recognized that people have coaches in business and when they're facing life challenges. We tend to look at people like Richard Branson and, some of the big names in business and think they did it all themselves. They must be some superhuman that somehow managed to overcome all these challenges themselves. But every one of them has advisors, has mentors. So I think the key thing is getting over the perception that people achieve success on their own, and that in itself is a great misconception. We all need a support team around us, whether it's to support us in terms of our mentality, our mindset, but also in terms of different skill sets. I'm a great fan of there's a psychometric test called it's focused on wealth, and it's developed by Roger Hamilton. My mind's gone blank, I'm having a senior moment. But basically, this is wealth dynamics, and it's based on the different personality types that are needed to create a successful business. So, you have the extroverts who are out there networking, you have the creatives who are the ideas people, you have the stars who are out there who can really communicate well. But you also need some of the more introverted, process-driven people to provide, the underlying stability, the processes, the systems, and so on. So, when people are starting out, they very often, as solopreneurs, have to manage every facet of the business, which can be a real challenge when some of those are just not things that come very easily to them. So I think when people then stop beating themselves up because there are certain things that they can't do themselves and start to accept the fact that their talents lie in a particular direction, and that having the support of a coach or a mentor to give them the insights that perhaps they miss because they're too close to what they're doing. I think when they realise that and see the value of that and are prepared to invest in that as they invest in other tools like computers and services and everything else, I think they'll find that their success increases exponentially and happens much faster.
Oh, I would definitely agree with that. And the people, it really sometimes comes down to a decision of, do I try to do this on my own and take 5, 6, 7 years to do that, or do I hire a professional who can help me do it much, much sooner?
Absolutely. And, good coaches invest in themselves. Good coaches invest in their ongoing development. And so the person who employs a coach, who works with a coach, it's like they're exponentially increasing their access to knowledge and experience, which otherwise they would have to spend years accumulating themselves. And that is the key. Typically I work with people who are drawn to me because the circumstances that they're going through are things I've already been through myself. So I'm not a textbook coach mentor at all. I'm very much basing the help that I give on actual personal experience, and also on the research and the learning that I do constantly in terms of learning about other business people's experiences, other people's experiences on a personal level as well. So, when you've got that wealth of experience accessible to you on a one-to-one basis, it can add so much value that you would struggle to get on your own.
Yeah, it reminds me of somebody coming up to me and saying, "Oh, Donna, I really like what you do. Is there a course or is there somewhere I can learn to do what you do?" And I said, "Well, you'd have to kind of plug into my head and take the last 20 years of my life, my experiences, to be able to do what I do. Knock yourself out if you can do that. But there is no one course that's going to teach you everything that I do and everything that I know."
Absolutely.
Well, Jan, if somebody called you up and they were, or you had to recommend to them, about finding a coach or finding a mentor, what kind of advice would you give them about selecting a coach who would best serve their needs?
I think it's really valuable to be clear about what it is you want from the coach. What is it you want assistance with? And finding somebody who has the kind of background of experience that you feel is relevant to your situation. Also, explore, if you can, aspects of the personality as well, because I'm a great believer that a coach and a coach's client have to have some resonance, some rapport between them. So it's not just about what are my qualifications, what are the coach's qualifications, what are their certifications or whatever. It's really also about, do you feel comfortable with this person? Do you feel you can trust them, to open up to them with what is really happening in your life? What are the challenges that you're facing? Because if you don't feel comfortable with a coach, you're not going to feel that you can trust them sufficiently to really open up and get to the root cause of whatever is preventing you from being successful. And that's really important to me. That's why I always have an exploratory session with clients before we start. And, the philosophy is very important as well. So explore everything you can find about a particular coach before you commit to that, because, that is very important. And it's interesting because one of my latest clients is actually in Japan, and he did exactly that. He found me online, he explored all the things he could find about me, what I've written, what my philosophy was, and even though he's in a very conventional profession, he's very interested in the metaphysical, in the, conscious evolution and so on. So we're a very good match. And the key thing is that you might think you're coming to a coach for one reason, but I can guarantee it will bring to the surface a lot of other things as well. So, again, find a coach who does focus on the areas that you're interested in, and really feel comfortable that person is going to be the right one for you.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Well, Jan, as we wrap up today's interview, how can somebody who needs a business coach who mixes the professional and the spiritual information like you do, find out more about you and how you can help?
Thank you, Donna. Well, the hub of our business is really smilingworld.org, and that's where a lot of the information is there about the Empower Your Life, Achieve Your Dreams program, and where you can get a free copy of the Dream Achiever Success Kit. And that really is focusing on how to set goals in a way that you will actually achieve them and all the pitfalls to avoid in doing that. So that then links off to our other sites, which provide the marketing information. So I would recommend start with smilingworld.org and explore what we've got on there, and also the link to our other sites, smilingworldmedia.com and successfrequency.com. And you can't go wrong.
All right. Well, Jan, thanks so much for being my guest today. here on Business Innovators Radio, and I thank all of you who have listened to today's episode on Business Innovators Radio and look forward to having you back again. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.